Welcome back to another Game Time Discussions. I'm Emery Cuz. I'm sitting here with Cameron Selby, and we have a fun slate for Wild Card Weekend. We're going to do the full six-gamer. Looking at this slate, there are just so many options, and we don't really get, the best teams, obviously, on regular slates. We get random teams. We play Carolina. We play the Raiders stacks and stuff like that. So now every stack we're going to talk about has legit upside opportunity. But there are some games we want to attack, and I'm going to let you get into those games and talk about totals and stuff like that. Because
so usually we do, on 13 game slates, the 5 highest totals and some contrarian. I'm just going to go ahead and give all 6 totals, just call it a day. So starting off Saturday is the first game, Chargers and Texans, 42.5. Next up, Steelers and Ravens, which we did in our playoff video if you wanted to check that out, our playoff predictions video rather. 43.5 seems a little rich, but it's there. Broncos Bills 47 total at the very moment. Packers Eagles, one to keep an eye on, especially Jalen Hurts' status, and if he's out, obviously that total is going to drop. But they're at 45.5. Commanders and Bucks are the highest total at 50.5. And then on Monday night, you got the Vikings and Rams, who is the pick'em on the weekend. 47 is their total as well.
All right, so let's get into it. 6-gamer. Talking about the first quarterback we're going to talk about. We have 6, actually. We're gonna talk about 6 today. And so
the main reason we want to is just because the way things are priced, it's not like, hey, there's no value, there's no this or that. It's just there's 6 games, a lot of elite spots. So if you go 2 or 3 directions, you have to just be like, oh, I'm not going to play any of these guys. So basically, these are 6 different directions, but I like all the spots for most of these guys. So we're going to start it off, obviously, the favorite to win the MVP, Josh Allen, going against the Broncos at home, 9.5-point favorite. It should be the coldest game on the weekend, but as of now, it doesn't look like weather will impact, whether it's wind conditions or snow/rain.
Right.
So it's just cold, and he's a running style quarterback that just is awesome. And, obviously, a couple weeks back against the Rams, put up the greatest fantasy scoring quarterback game of all time at I believe 55 points, whatever it was.
Yeah, something
via
crazy.
DraftKings at least, because he got the bonus
twice.
Yeah, he had a 55 and he followed it up with a 45 or 44. He's just been insanely good. Thing is, it's not a great spot. Denver is actually the number 1 DraftKings scoring defense this year. So obviously they're number 3 against the run. A little more susceptible to the pass, but Buffalo also notoriously, it's hard to stack him. We have been by default going to Khalil Shakir, but his price got too rich. Well, now it's back to 5,300. So even though he's got a 6 target, floor,
couple duds,
couple less than 6 point, or even less than 7, 3 of his last 5 games. But he's also got, the boom plays. Obviously, you see a couple 10 target games and 12 target games, over 100-yard games. I'm not saying that he's the easiest click, and you have to click on him if you go Josh Allen, because I can completely get on board with just unstacking. But at least the receiver value is so low because, 5,300, he's the most expensive pass catcher. Then you got Amari Cooper, who hasn't been playing a ton. He's away from the team at the very moment. He's still, you just don't know. We're recording this as a Tuesday, so there's no practice reports yet. But, he has the upside to all of a sudden, be a 14-target guy like he was against the Rams in his best performance. Or you got Dalton Kincaid, who has been working his way back from injury. He basically is a tight end we were very wrong on this year, and it's just because solely he didn't have any boom games. Last year when the season ended, he was just going for what you saw from Trey McBride, of the 100-yard upside as a tight end, which is all of a sudden becoming a common thing. He had those games of upside. He just wasn't scoring touchdowns. And we were like, well, give him a couple touchdowns because Stephon Diggs is gone. Well, he still finished with 2. But he also got hurt a couple games. And, again, no boom. But he's $4,000, really cheap to fit. And tight end is kind of wide open on this slate as well.
Yeah. Keon Coleman's on there, too.
And Keon Coleman coming back
another
from injury.
Option for the Buffalo. Yeah,
don't like
just
it,
another
but all
option.
of these guys are going to be low-owned as a bill. Obviously, Josh Allen is the highest owned quarterback, but everybody else is under 20% owned as a skill player, which they're one of, I believe, 2 teams on the entire slate that has nobody above 20% ownership from a skill position perspective. So keep in mind, the way to get different if you're going to play Josh Allen, is to double stack him, because not many people are doing that. And even if they are, they're kind of doing a lot of mix and matching of all these guys, because you also can't ignore James Cook, who had his second year of 16 touchdowns. He ended up with 18 because he punched one in on week 18. He's just a guy that just keeps on getting scoring opportunities. So 6,700 is very, very reasonable, but it is a deep, deep running back slate.
Yeah. And then, going over the next guy, we have Jaden Daniels. Let's see, running backs, Brian, and I can put Austin Eckler in there. I think he's cheap enough for it to matter.
I really think you should, because I got a little soliloquy.
Oh, okay. Fine.
Yeah,
Terry's also 6,500, which is pretty cheap for him. And Zacchaeus dropping touchdowns keeps him at 4,400. So,
but guess who isn't dropping touchdowns? It's Zach Ertz,
yeah,
who's the second highest priced tight end. And I also want to throw in De'Ami Brown, mainly because he did miss one game from injury. He did come back and only had 43% of snaps, but they also rested a lot of guys towards the end. But he's basically had at least 5 opportunities in, I believe, the last 5 games he's played. And he's 3,400, so there's not many options in less than 4,000 you can play at receiver. So if you need a cheap guy, he's worth the mention, because he was getting wide receiver 2 snaps before he went down with an injury. He had a game of 78% of the snaps, 66% of the snaps. Zacchaeus had back-to-back games of strong performances, and then I honestly was not watching Dallas and Washington in Week 18, so I don't know if Zacchaeus' snaps stayed with Mariota or if he dropped off. What have you, but a lot of options. But Austin Eckler returned from a concussion, missed 4 games, but then came back and he outsnapped Brian Robinson. Him being $1,000 different, he is the cheapest running back I would play. But because of the way that he gets his fantasy points, which is PPR scoring, 4,800 just seems like a very good bargain in the highest total game. And if you want it to be a little different in Jaden Daniels stacks, I don't think many people are going to flock to put in Terry and Austin Eckler. I think a lot of people are going to go a Terry McLaurin, Zach Ertz route.
Right.
But Austin Eckler, 2% owned, but he is the cheapest running back essentially with legitimate playing time. He's projecting pretty decently. I just think it's really worth mentioning.
That's absolutely fair. Yeah, he's projecting for 2% roster,
2%
which is
8 fantasy points. I will take that for somebody under 5,000.
Yeah,
as a
absolutely.
running back, it's going to open up a lot of things. And then on top of that being the playoffs, maybe he just kind of gets back to his old days where he's vulturing touchdowns and just
that's
inefficient
the plan, right?
getting
If you're going to put him in
points.
Yeah, and then we'll go to the next game, next team. We've actually got multiple games on here. If you look here, I'll show you all. We have the Chargers and Houston, and then Tampa Bay and Washington, because those are the high-scoring games, and we're expecting them to go well. Baker Mayfield, on the other side of this game, he has a running back at 7,000 that is getting 65% ownership right now on RotoWire. So we'll see if that sticks. I don't know that it will, but even if it comes down to 50%, I don't know. I don't know how I'm comfortable with that.
He is really kind of overtaken and done well with his touches in recent weeks. Last week when they lost the game against Dallas and Rachaad White got ripped, he lost a lot of playing time. Bucky Irving had a lot of touches the following week. And then last week, we're going to get Rachaad White involved. Well, in a must-win game for Tampa Bay, he had 0 touches on all of his snaps. So it's the Bucky Irving show. He's 7,000. He's at home. He's a favorite. Kind of checks all the boxes, right? And so that's why a lot of ownership is flocking there, because it's 7,000, very affordable. But last week, we didn't have a live stream. Obviously, it was week 18. But if you notice, one of the popular running backs that I faded was Bucky Irving. And it was because I was like, Jonathan Taylor's getting 10% ownership against the Jags. I'm not getting away from that. And then there's Bijan, who we were like, best matchup. They're at home, must-win game.
Played a lot of him.
And guess what? He was the highest scoring running back. And Jonathan Taylor, second highest scoring running back. Bucky Irving did not score. And he was he didn't score until the very end. He ended up getting 16, and essentially it was just whether or not you played him or Mike Evans. He scored slightly below Mike Evans because they were basically the same price. Now his price dropped about 700 because of this slate. It's very reasonable, but just ownership-wise, there's ways to get different, I think.
Yeah, and you can always just pay up to Derrick Henry or Saquon at the top, like
Exactly.
and not
You're
have
not
to
going to
worry
be able
about
to
it.
get two of those guys.
No.
So you have to make some decisions. At least 7,000, and hypothetically one of those guys in 8,000. We'll talk about them in a second, but it's
forgot one.
reasonable. It's not like you're dead or out of money,
Right.
but it's just it forces your hand a lot. And again, what we talked about before we started this episode is just the reason we're talking 6 quarterbacks. We're probably only going to play 2 to maybe 3.
Yeah.
In our 3 to 5 builds that we do. But the thing is, once you do a build, like once you do a Tampa build, you have to play Mike with Baker.
Yes.
And once you do at 79, you can't play anybody of certain value. So say you did a double of Mike and Bucky, you really have no more money for stars. So it forces your hand too much to me. This is probably my least favorite stack, but I don't mind if you go this route. But yeah, the ownership wise, I'm just going to keep an eye on it because if Tampa is just kind of killing and pulling ownership, like Mike Evans is 22% owned at nearly $8,000. Bucky Irvin's at 65. Really, really rich for me when I see other guys in better spots that are just as expensive.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
A little more.
Right. And also, these are all big name players, that's why we have them up here. And but looking at some other guys, Sterling Shepard is actually one of the best values on the slate. I just wanted to point him out. Kate Otten's still with the Q tag. Payne Durham, been good. Devin Culp is also an option if you wanted to be different. Maybe Devin Culp falls in the end zone. He's also been really good.
He's had some big plays, but obviously Cade Otton has missed the last 3 games, so we're long removed from the mid-season Cade Otton just plug and play it when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were out and he had 20-point ceilings. Long way away from that. Even if he does return, I'm not saying that he's a bad play, but
right.
At this point, tight ends for Tampa,
4,100, I'm not as comfortable.
Exactly. Tight ends have basically been touchdown or bust. Payne Durham has scored twice, and then the other time we played him, he was $200. So you got a very good value on that showdown slate. Devin Culp, 27, sure, don't mind him, but all these tight ends are kind of between 34 and 47 this week.
Mm-hmm.
All of them I can see having the ceiling week, and I actually have no idea what I want to do at tight end this week. So maybe it's a bring back or just forcing the double with the tight end position to get it out of the way, because a lot of them, if you remember the wild card slate last year, this was a slate that all the tight ends went off. Mm-hmm. And I remember being dead in the water. I went to the Cowboys game, was very sad, had to walk away, and I left early. And then find out that when we're in the car, Jake Ferguson has 10 for 93 and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, because Dak only is really good when they're losing.
Exactly. But it's like there were so many tight ends that were good, and I only had like him and somebody else left, and I think Jaden Reed, who had 0 that game. And I was just like, I'm dead. And
Jake saved you.
Jake saved me. So tight ends can come through, and because of the lack of extreme value at receiver, I mean, maybe there's options, but double tight end for sure in play this weekend.
For sure. Let's go ahead and go back to our quarterbacks. That was our Baker stack. Justin Herbert's next, $6,000 against Houston. His running back in JK, we'll see if he plays. I don't think
he was,
will.
No, I don't.
I think he will.
He was significantly banged up. Obviously, Gus Edwards has missed 2 straight. He's the one to keep an eye on this week. Even if he does, that doesn't mean we're playing Gus Edwards. That just means we're less excited to play a J.K. Dobbins. But he's become really explanatory on how you want to go about it, because he is hitting his stride at the right time. He's finally having the 300-plus yard ceiling games, and they're all going to these 4 guys, really. Ladd McConkey, go ahead.
Oh, that's it. There's only 4. And I want to talk about Ladd, but I know who you hate playing, but I'm excited to play.
I don't think you know what I hate.
I know what you hate.
I don't think you know what I hate.
I don't know if you, dude. I mean, Ladd's been great, but this guy, I know who you hate.
We're playing some Quentin Johnson this week.
Look at his numbers, man.
I'm fully sold on the fact that he's got drop issues.
1 drop.
I don't know if he's gonna live up to his first round billing. But damn it, he's a red zone threat, and if you can open up a 13 for 186 ceiling, like, sign me up. And Derek Stingley having a Pro Bowl All-Pro type of season, and I guarantee you he's not going to be on Quinn the entire time. And Houston has been susceptible to big plays all season long when they've played good teams. So if we're looking for deep balls and stuff like that, ceiling type of performances, this is the environment for a Quentin Johnston. So I hate playing players that I don't think are great, which I know you're on board with, but the way he's playing right now, I'm just kind of I'm set and sold on playing for him at 4,800.
Actually, I think Quentin Johnston's good at football. I think he is a good receiver. I hate the fact that he drops the ball, because that is literally like, you can have all the arguments in the world of being good receiver, good routes, good things. Doesn't matter if you don't catch the ball. And he hasn't done that very well. But he is actually, to me, one of the better receivers out of that class. I don't know that he was first, but
it wasn't a great class, and obviously, he
right.
hasn't lived up to that first round billing yet. But my problem is when you got the size, the speed, and
Yes.
the route running, and you're a
Athleticism.
body catcher.
No, yeah, I agree.
That's my problem, because his catches, like if you remember Jamar Chase when he first came into the league in the preseason, he had drop issues, but it wasn't like, oh, you're dropping,
no,
like,
for sure.
It was like, hey, they're going through my hands, but I'm gonna catch them. But like if you're just all the time
I know.
doing that, I just don't love that. But again, we're playing some Quentin Johnston this
No,
week.
yeah,
Don't
for
get me
sure.
wrong.
His separation is good, and that's the thing that gets me excited, and that's why he's so good at deep balls and things like that. I will say, Kamari Lassiter is also been playing really well as a rookie this year. He's on the opposite side of Derek Stingley, but I think guys like Lad McConkey and Quentin Johnston are going to pose some issues because of Lad's being in the slot so much, and then also Quentin Johnston, just being so much more physically gifted than these other guys. So. Let's play some Quentin Johnston. Shoot.
Yeah, obviously, there's a lots of like, and Josh Palmer did not practice the entire week last week, and it was a foot injury. So
Didn't practice.
He didn't
Isn't gonna-
practice today. They actually practiced today because they're the first game on the slate on Saturday afternoon. But I don't expect him to play.
Yeah.
Just because of I'm just doing hey, you're the first game on the slate. You didn't practice all week in a must-win. Well, it was a must-win to get in, but it was a must-win to play Houston instead of at Baltimore, which we brought up in our playoff prediction video. It was a big deal, but again, Josh Palmer has just kind of been a vulture on other guys rather than the guy to have the boom games that we actually thought would happen this year. Obviously 1 touchdown, 7 points a game is not exciting. I really like him as a wide receiver 3. They just, a lot of times, were just running the ball, grind it out. And now that they're starting to open up, he's got some low-owned tournament-ishy
Yeah,
vibes.
for sure.
But I just kind of hope he doesn't play so I can just make my decisions easier. And then also Will Dissly. Just wanted to point out his price to me is too cheap at 34. We saw some really strong floor games from him during the middle part of the season. He gets hurt. He misses a couple weeks. And then Stone Smart was a guy that we targeted a couple weeks and worked out pretty solidly. But yeah, he's a guy that's just going to be on the field a ton, and he's got the touchdown upside, 15-point ceilings, and 3,400. He's been one of the cheapest starting tight ends.
Right.
Obviously, if Payne Durham is starting instead of Cade Otton, that's different. Isaiah Likely is in play because he's Isaiah Likely, and on top of that, Isaiah Flowers remains out. Instead of boosting up another receiver, I'm just going to be like, okay, more
Isaiah Likely is probably
targets.
going to be on the field.
Exactly. So he's the cheapest starting tight end. And so, again, don't know what I want to do with tight end in terms of my exposure this week, but if I like some Justin Herbert, getting Will Dissly at 34 opens up a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I also wonder if you're double stacking, who are your favorite 2?
What if I went 3?
Well, I don't hate it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you had to pick between these 3,
obviously, I don't think you can get off Lad.
fair.
So uncomfortably, it's not even uncomfortably. I would say Lad and Will Dissly is my slight preference.
Wow.
But if you can convince me that you're just like, this is the tight end this week, I'm completely fine riding with Lad and Quinn Johnston without a Josh Palmer this Saturday against the Texans.
Well, there are some other tight ends that I like on this slate, so we'll talk about those guys. We'll go to the next.
No, there's so many good options,
Very,
but
very
he is
good.
the cheapest one. He's going to be on the field.
Right.
And again, if Palmer's out, that doesn't necessarily mean, Darius Davis is just going to get all of the work that Josh Palmer would have. Kind of thing.
So Minnesota's the 32nd ranked pass defense against receivers. That is something we're going to have to attack. Tyler Higbee is 3,300 back, but there's a guy in this game I think you just kind of have to play. like
Yeah.
I just can't get away from. And that is Puka.
He's going to be the thumbnail on this video,
Okay.
or one of the two.
Perfect.
He just has a ceiling floor combination like no other receiver remaining, or at least on this slate.
Yeah.
He's getting the 14 targets last year. I remember in the wild card round against the Lions. I went with Cooper because it's like, hey, it's playoff time. It was again against the 32nd ranked
Yeah.
against receivers, and we're like, Cooper Kupp is going to be the all reliable. He's going to be the one to, if you're going to win this game or be close to
Not
it.
the rookie.
And he went 3 for 29, and Puka went
Was
crazy. And it's like, lesson learned. I got it.
You're the guy.
You're the guy. So
Cool.
he came back right from injury when he missed a couple of weeks because of that knee to start the year. And immediately when he came back, we were like, if you got him, you're starting him. And a lot of people didn't. And even in DFS wise, I still played him because I'm like, this guy's got a ceiling like no other, and nobody's playing him. And he ends up going for 100 yards and like 40% of the snaps against these very Vikings. And that was his first game back from injury on a short week on Thursday Night Football.
Yep.
And then followed that up, and he's had incredible floor games and ceiling games as well. He had a 45-pointer against the Bills in that shootout a few weeks back. And then, basically to make the playoffs against the Cardinals, 14 targets, 10 for 129. He also has rushing upside for what it's worth. He has a couple games in there where he has multiple rushing attempts. There's nothing to not like about him, and he is finally healthy fully. There's been no injuries or setbacks since. He's the guy. The thing is, if you're going to double it, who you going with? Because Cooper Kupp has not been the same.
I wanted to point something out before we move on.
Go ahead.
Just for the reference. Home games for Puka have been insane. 14 targets against Arizona, 14 targets against Buffalo, 13 targets, 14 targets, 9 targets in his game back.
Go
it's
against that
freaking
that
insane.
Atlanta.
Oh yeah,
They
yeah.
had that split.
Look at this.
122 at home.
Yeah.
To 63 on the road.
Averaging 26.9. I just wanted to point that out before we move over because
big deal.
That is
that's a great data point.
So
But yeah,
get Puka.
For sure. But even if you go with the Matt's double, I'm not entirely confident in going Cooper Kupp anymore because he's not getting the ball anymore.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. He had a goose egg in the first round of the fantasy playoffs. And then he follows that up with a 5.4 game and a 3.9 game. Games you had to win. Wasn't like it was bad environments because Jets had been giving up a ton of points. Cardinals, kind of same thing. And it's just like, you're barely getting the ball. For the last 5 games, he's been under 30 yards, and he's 6,400.
Yeah.
Obviously, if I'm thinking this way, nobody else is going to be playing him as well.
7%.
7% owned?
Mm-hmm.
Wish it was a little lower, but at the same time, on a 6-game slate, that's pretty low. Again, it's going to force your hand if you go a 76 Puka and a 64 Kupp. But also, it's just kind of like, why not ride a Kyron Williams going against the team that just allowed 4 rushing touchdowns in a win, or you're on the road the entire playoff game? And on top of that, Blake Corum, broken forearm, he's out for the year. So anybody that's a Blake Corum, like, oh, he's the better running back. Well, first of all, he's not. Second of all, he ain't even going to get the chance in the postseason to even supplant him in any way, shape, or form for even a drive.
Right.
When it's mattered, Kyron has been on the field all the time, getting all the important touches. Yeah, sometimes he isn't efficient. Maybe that's because of his banged-up line to start the year.
Yeah.
But he gets touchdowns. The only problem with him is just he's not a PPR back. But he's going to get touchdown opportunities. He's probably one of the best bets to score this weekend. And then he's got 100-yard upside. He's got 25-touch upside.
29. 30, 31.
I wouldn't be shocked if he got 30 touches. So even though he usually does not correlate with the Matthew Stafford, I'd rather just get the guys who are going to score all the points for the Rams if I'm truly going to go to a Matthew Stafford double.
Fair enough. I was going to say he had 22 points against Minnesota in the first meeting, 30 rushes, but also, 7 targets in that game.
That was his season high.
So,
and again, not entirely efficient, but hey, that 22.6 looks pretty good. And then also the last guy that we want to talk about, and of course you can mention the Jordan Whittington, Marcus Robinson, Tutu Atwell. Somebody could go for a 30-yard touchdown. I don't know who, and I don't want to gamble on it. But Tyler Higbee, coming off a torn ACL, he didn't play the entire season, and he finally gets started week 16. obviously, we're not playing him first game back off an ACL injury, but he scores a touchdown. And, only touchdown of the game. Very impressive. Sure. Go ahead. Arizona, obviously not a great game. But Seattle, everybody rested except for him.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, all the targets. We want to get you ready. And that doesn't mean like, hey, we're going to definitely play him. But being 3,300, I did misspeak. He's the cheapest starting tight end on the slate.
But yeah, by
but
100.
He does split snaps, but he had a season high in snaps this past week. It's just kind of implementing. And again, if you don't know what to do at tight end this week, he's definitely an option. And I don't expect many people to really flock to him.
3%.
3% owned on a 6-game slate. That is way, way too cheap. So him being the lowest owned and cheapest guy is just a pretty good, solid combination. Projections don't love him, but there's going to be some tight ends that bust because it's just kind of like all these guys are really low floors, but high ceilings.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't want to go Mark Andrews route or TJ, who has yet to score this year, or Zach Ertz, who at some point is going to stop catching touchdowns,
hopefully,
or Dallas Goedert, which we've seen 180-yard games and we've seen 0 target games.
Right. Yeah,
it's kind of wide open in a good way. So at least consider some Tyler Higbee if you didn't want to go a Kyron route plus a Puka. But Puka is the must, especially if you're going with the Matthew Stafford build.
Exactly. Completely agree with that. Let's and shoot, even if you're not going with the Matthew Stafford build, I'm playing Puka.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But last guy that we're going to talk about is CJ Stroud. 5,500 is just really cheap, and that's kind of why he's on here because he hasn't been that good. He's actually I love making all these references, but you can compare him to Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams' stats are much better if you just look at them across the board. So Houston has one guy in particular that if you are going to play CJ Stroud, you have to put Nico in your line. That scares me because I'm probably going to have to also try to shove Puka in there, and I don't know that you can. So we'll talk about that, but this is kind of all I really like talking about. There's some guys lower, but
so here's the thing. First off, John Mechie, he left with a head injury this past week. He did play a couple of snaps, which obviously everybody did, but he wasn't going to be a guy that was going to rest in the first quarter, even if
right.
it was healthy.
Yeah.
But he's been the one to get the bulk of the targets since Tank Dell went down. At least he had the 5 opportunity, and we've liked him as a receiver prospect before. But if he doesn't play, again, it just opens up opportunity, and it's just like if you do a double, it's going to be very affordable because you got the second cheapest quarterback on the entire slate. Nico obviously is going to be a plug and play if you're going CJ Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going Joe Mixon because he's really tailed off, and on top of that, I don't know. I don't know if I feel the same about I do in Stafford, which it's just like, hey, just put the points on the board.
Right, for sure.
Houston, it's just like I'd rather just go really cheap because you got a cheap Xavier Hutchinson, you got a cheap Robert Woods, Dalton Schultz,
Deontay Johnson.
37%
of the snaps last week.
You just want to. Obviously, against Baltimore, which we called out as soon as he got traded for, that was the worst situation for him.
Right.
Even though Carolina, he was wide receiver 1-esque in his sample size with Sam Darnold, and I don't know if he even during his run had Bryce Young come back before he ended up.
Oh, you mean Andy Dalton? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, perfect. No, Sam Darnold. Yeah,
okay.
Same, whatever.
Same number,
yeah,
all that stuff.
Same hair color. Go on, though.
But yeah, I mean, 3,500.
Yeah.
Sure. It's worth the dart throw.
3,700 for Robert Woods. Like, he played 62% of the snaps.
Yeah, and again, none of these guys are going to project well. He's not even on RotoWire's projection. Deontay Johnson.
Interesting.
I see him at less than 4 points, and he's 0.5% owned. So literally nobody's going to touch him. So the way to get different is playing one of the most unpopular quarterbacks in a game where they're home dogs.
Right.
So at least a positive game environment, and at least the Chargers, they've been solid against, for the most part, as a defense, but they've given up boom games to quarterbacks. They gave up over 350 and 3 touchdowns to Joe Burrow. Big game against Lamar Jackson and 30 points. They allowed a 4-touchdown game against Baker Mayfield. And then on top of that, Bo Nix in that Thursday night slate basically decided the wild card positioning for Denver versus the Chargers. Bo Nix had a really, really strong game. So quarterbacks have been able to get some stats against them. And last year, I remember Nico Collins was the guy that you really wanted to be on against Cleveland, and I was just like, I think Houston's going to win, but it's the number one scoring defense. I understand Houston's going to win, but I don't want. Oh no, it doesn't matter. Just put him in. Now he's expensive, but if you're going the Houston route again, you're going to force your lineup based on this one decision.
Right.
But not many people are making this decision. That's why it's a perfect tournament-esque build. I don't know if we're going to end up playing him, but he is worth mentioning just because of the game environment that he's going to be in.
Yep. Now, I do want to, just kind of go through some. We'll talk about running backs quick, and then I want to talk about wide receivers because I kind of want to have your take on some of these wide receivers. There are tiers to these wide receivers, Absolutely. And we have to definitely talk about it. But the running backs we're going to talk about, we haven't talked about Saquon. Saquon is absolutely the number one guy if you can get to him. It's not a question in my mind. It's a better matchup than anybody else, basically, and he is just number one.
Yeah, he's I had a little laugh earlier because this was kind of like it gave me war flashbacks when we had a primetime slate and we had to go Saquon or Derrick Henry.
No,
and Derrick Henry had 150 yards, and we were way wrong. Not just wrong, we were way wrong because that was the hat trick.
Yeah,
almost 300-yard game by Saquon Barkley himself. Obviously, that wasn't against Green Bay, but the last time he did play Green Bay, it was in Brazil. 3-touchdown hat trick in his debut against the Green Bay Packers way back week 1. And I know that is an eternity ago, especially in football terms. But 36 points, he's had a lot of those ceilings before. And if Jalen Hurts is getting hurt because of concussions running the football, maybe, hey, we don't want to go head first with the tush push in this 1-yard end zone. So maybe let's let the best running back in football punch 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 or 4 in.
It'd be one thing. You were like, it's been a long time since they played Green Bay in week 1. Well, it's not like he got worse. He just got better.
Yeah.
So
and he did go up and down a little just when they were going through their lulls, but look at that 49-point game. That's the one we were wrong about. He did go over 300 yards. Apologize.
Total.
Yeah. But again, his problem is just he's gotten vultured a lot. Yeah. Despite having 15 touchdowns, he could have had 25.
Easy. And he could have been the best. He could have had the best running back season ever.
They had Kenny Pickett on a tush push.
Yeah.
They were like, let's put the ball in his hands instead of Saquon Barkley. Sure it works. I just
let this man be the greatest.
Yes.
Just let him be the greatest.
Let him go for the rushing record and not rest, even though you're locked in, because history is why running backs are in the Hall of Fame, not because of Super Bowl wins. So I don't think saying, hey, you got to have to beat your old team and just get 101 yards, I don't think that was too much to ask, but that's the story for another day. Saquon Barkley is my favorite running back on the slate if you can get to him. A lot of my lineups are going to have him, even if it's just as a standalone play.
Fair.
Again, you got to decide between him and Derrick Henry. Last time Derrick Henry played the Steelers, he had 162 yards rushing.
They're a good defense.
They're a good defense, but shit, last time Washington, they're good against the run. Let's not play Saquon. 49 fantasy points. So the biggest one I think up top that does not stand out to me is Josh Jacobs, mainly because Philly is number 1 in total defense, number 2 against running backs, being the dog like they are. Maybe he gets the PPR points because also Christian Watson out for the year now, and they aren't letting Jaden Reed get the ball, and it's just everybody gets 5 opportunities, and Josh Jacobs, you're going to get your 25. He had 7 straight games with 20 points and then back-to-back duds to end the season. He was as steady as they come. Again, also 16 touchdowns. He also has the occasional, 40-ish receiving yard upside as well.
Mm-hmm.
But we're picking Philly in this game. I don't know if it'll be necessarily close if Jalen Hurts is playing.
Right.
But again, we had in our playoff prediction video, we were like, hey, if Kenny Pickett is playing, does that mean you're picking the Packers? And we both said no.
No, yeah. It's still the
with that being said,
Eagles.
It's just not a positive game environment, and others around him have the same exact upside. So that's kind of why I think he's the one true guy, 7K and above.
Yeah.
I'm fine not getting to.
Yeah, and we talked about, after that, Kyron and Bucky. We talked about James Cook, J.K. Dobbins. Aaron Jones is the next guy that we haven't really got to, but he's still
6,000, man.
Yeah, that's super cheap.
He's probably the easiest organic bring back if you can, if you're going to do the Rams build, because of the fact that Justin Jefferson, even though he went over 100 last time they played, it's 8,100.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's hard to go Puka 81, Kyron 74. Like, it just doesn't work mathematically. But Aaron Jones, 6,000, you can find ways to make that work. Hawkinson, he's going to project well, but again, he hasn't scored. Last week, he led the team with 8 targets, had 2 catches for 9 yards. Sam Darnold's not his quarterback. He needs to find another Kirk Cousins.
Fair.
So that's just kind of is what it is. But yeah, Aaron Jones, another solid season 10 of the year. He's one that kind of goes by game script, though, because he'll have the 5 targets every week or the 30 receiving yards. But if he gets out of hand, they're just not giving him the ball anymore. And there's a lot of times where he's just not scoring touchdowns. We saw all the guys that we just mentioned that had 15-plus touchdowns. He's got 7 on the season. And I don't think he missed time, if I remember correctly. No. He missed.
Nope,
No, he
didn't miss a game.
So having 17 games and only scored 7 touchdowns, and a lot of them came early, I just think he's one of those guys. He's safe to get double digits. It's not going to hurt you if that's all he gets.
Right.
But, I don't know. I think that's going to be an ownership play for me if just people are not really flocking to him. If I looked at the ownership right now that RotoWire is showing in terms of running backs, he is the 4th highest owned at 18%. That's not terrible, but I'd rather play other guys that are lower, like James Cook at 12.6% as a 9.5-point favorite at home, who's got 16 touchdowns, more than double that.
Right.
I think I'd rather find a way to get $700 more, kind of.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. But then, there are some guys, though, that are cheap that we have to get to because we have to find a little bit of flexibility on the slate. Guess who they are, though? They're the Pittsburgh running backs. Jaylen Warren and Najee are both down here. I can't get them right, so it doesn't matter. But Jaylen Warren, 5,200, sucked this last game against Cincinnati. And they played them, so it's not like they pulled these guys. Hasn't played against KC and Baltimore. I believe he had more snaps than Najee.
He had 5 straight games with more snaps than Najee, and it was trending in the right direction. That's why last week when we did the Saturday slate, we went all in on Jalen, even though he was finally more expensive,
right?
And he was way more popular. And they just were like, no, 1 target,
nothing.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, that's fine. With Najee, I don't know what other than just like, hey, this might be your last game as a Steeler, so we're going to give you 25 touches no matter what, because that's very much in the cards. Obviously, they have to make a decision on him this offseason. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to trust either, but they both fit. They're both going to be tournament plays, probably both under 10% owned, especially Najee, because nobody loves playing Najee. But if he scores 5,000 and you get 12 points out of him, you're going to be feeling really, really good about yourself. So both of them are in play, especially if it's a lower grinded out game and it's just raw points. We'll be talking about that show on Slate on the live stream this Saturday if you guys wanted to tune into that. But, they're just really cheap options. And then on top of that, last 2 guys I wanted to mention, Jaleel McLaughlin all of a sudden went from just losing snaps to 41% of the snaps leading the team and 18 opportunities this past game in a game where obviously must win, but they were ahead by a lot. Very inefficient. He's just not very good. He's just not. But at the same time, they hate everybody else too. So him being 4,900, going to be trailing, possible PPR upside. I don't know. I'm just making things try to make it work. And then the same thing goes with Austin Eckler, which again for some reason he's the lowest owned running back right now out of anybody, unless you're counting Patrick Ricard, the fullback for the Baltimore Ravens. Nobody's playing Austin Eckler. We expect a shootout. 4,800. He might be one of my favorite values from the running back perspective.
Fair. And then let's go ahead and talk about the wide receiver situation, because if you just look at the top, there are 5 guys above 7,500 or more. And I want some rankings. Rank these guys for me 1 through 5.
Everybody up 7,000?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Puka 1.
Yeah, agreed.
Nico 2A. 2B, A.J. Brown.
Interesting. Okay.
4, Justin Jefferson. And then 5, Mike Evans.
Interesting. Okay.
And my thing is, again, it's going to be really hard to get to a Mike or a Justin Jefferson and make it work. If you look from a fantasy perspective, Rams, really good matchup.
Yeah.
Guess what Detroit was? And Sam Darnold shit the bed and missed him several times in the end zone. So if something similar happens, and again, the Rams 3 straight games, non-resting to end the season, allowed less than 10 points.
Right.
Shut down everybody, essentially. And they're all non-playoff teams, but at the end of the day, they still shut them all down. And with that being said, if Sam Darnold sees ghosts, or it's just one of those games where he just cannot get in sync and rhythm, I could see a thing where he gets 7 for 100, gets 20 points, but he doesn't score. And 20 points, I don't think will get it done that high up. When I see other guys that has the same or bigger opportunities ahead, Mike Evans, tough to get to, but it is the high-scoring game, so I understand that.
Yeah.
Nico Collins, again, we mentioned Chargers have been susceptible, and even as a standalone play, don't mind him. A.J. Brown, last time he played the Green Bay Packers, went off just as much. And even with Kenny Pickett, when Jalen Hurts went out, he still had a dominant amount of targets.
Right.
Finally, once he went down. I think he had 14 in that game when Jalen Hurts got hurt. So I don't mind him either way as well. On top of that, Philly being favored and back and forth game. But yeah, Puka clear 1, and then that's kind of how I rank those 5.
Well, I rank it differently.
Okay.
I actually have JJ second. But so I'm Puka, JJ, Nico. I guess.
If Price,
I guess AJ Brown.
If
Mike
Price
Evans.
didn't matter,
Yes.
I would probably be more on the side of putting Justin Jefferson ahead. But
Right.
I see if you had to say, blank canvas, one person had 100 yards and a touchdown, and one person didn't, or that person that possibly scored a second time, I don't think that's Justin Jefferson. I think he's the least likely of those 5 to have 2 touchdowns this week. So if I'm thinking ceiling, if my most expensive guy, I'm not that confident can just have that 30-point game.
Right.
That's why I brought him down as low as I did.
AJ Brown is the one that I dislike.
Okay.
Truly. And I want to give these exposures real quick. So roster percentage is 43%, of course, to Puka. He's the highest. 40% to JJ. Nico's
See, that's another thing.
Yeah. AJ Brown is 22, Mike Evans 21, and then Nico is 18. So Nico I like in that realm.
Yeah.
Because
so
of that.
basically,
but, yeah.
the other 3 are half the ownership of Justin Jefferson. And on top of that, the one that was barely over half was AJ Brown. And I guarantee you, if Kenny Pickett is playing and Jalen Hurts is not, that ownership's going to plummet to maybe
fair.
10%. And obviously, that's going to give a spike to Saquon. And I'm not sure if I would play them together and just have a random line of that nature.
Fair.
But if you want to find a way to get off Saquon, I think it's perfectly reasonable to go with A.J. Brown. Or if you're just like, nah, Devontae Smith is back and he's hitting his stride at the right time, he's 5,700.
Yeah.
That's too damn cheap for how good he is at football.
Yeah,
he
yeah,
just isn't
absolutely.
getting the 10 target upside that other people have. But recently, not too bad himself.
Yeah. And
it's not like they have wide receiver 3s or 4s,
Right,
or even
right,
tight
right.
ends
Just-
for that matter.
just
to
the
really
2.
significant. It's them. It's
Yeah.
those 3 guys, and they're all very different prices. That's just kind of my thought on the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, give me a quarterback you want to start with.
Let's start, because we had so much fun talking about him earlier. Let's go with Justin Herbert
Okay.
and put in Ladd and Mr. Quinn Johnston.
Perfect. 4,800.
All right.
And then Houston.
Bring back, I'm going to say Nico.
Okay.
And again, that basically makes our line be the way it is. I'd say let's try to get some more money, find what defense you like. I want to point out that I know doesn't make sense because they're the biggest underdog, but the Steelers being 2,200 just
Yeah,
opens
so
up
cheap.
a lot of money. And I'm not interested in any defense
Until way up here, probably.
until way up top, whether that's the Chargers, Eagles, Bills. So basically to me, or maybe if you want to say the Rams really make Sam Darnold struggle as well, put an argument because, again, 3 straight games
Right,
over 10
right.
points. But I think defense to me is pretty simple. You spend up or you spend way down.
Let's try it.
All right.
All right. So,
I'm going to let you take tight end because, again, all over the place.
if you
and-
don't want to.
Yeah, I do not.
Are we saying Kate Otten is in or out? That's the real question, I guess.
Let's say he's in.
Okay, that makes a difference. Pat. I mean, could always just go Mark Andrews.
Okay. Well, he's got the obviously highest projection, highest floor.
Yeah, that's why.
Ownership wise, I think it's
He's the
pretty spread out,
highest.
but he is the highest owned.
Yeah.
Don't mind it.
I'm not against Zach Ertz here. He's a guy that I think you can get to. Wait a second. No, we're not playing Zach Ertz because I know who I want to play at running back. So let's go Mark.
You want to go, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to get to Puka, but I don't know if you can. It's just impossible.
All right. Well, we're gonna find a way to get to Saquon, so we're gonna see what we have left after
Okay.
that. No, it's
Okay.
gonna work. Watch.
You can do it. You can do it when you have a wide receiver spot. You can get a cheap wide receiver.
Okay.
So
we'll have to go down and tight end in this regard.
well,
But
you can go
my next idea was a cheap running back.
one of these guys.
Let's say Austin Eckler, since he's the highest total, and we need a true tournament play with all the kind of.
And he's cheap, so
Yeah,
it's
he's
reasonable.
cheap. So 4,400 remainder. And again, I told you earlier, I think double tight end is very viable. But if you didn't want to go that route,
Zacchaeus. Well, we just played a Washington Blair. Zach Ertz. Let's go down.
okay.
Let's see.
What if you went to the Kincaid or Tucker Craft range, which is 4,007? Both of them less than 8% owned. So pretty good leverage. Offense standalone plays.
Let's go with Tucker Craft.
Okay.
If someone scores, it's gonna be him.
And I have the perfect ending to put a button on this line.
Shakir.
Actually, no, I wasn't thinking Shakir.
Who are you thinking of?
I was thinking Rashad Bateman. Because Pittsburgh, obviously, they're playing from ahead. But in this result where maybe Pittsburgh's playing from ahead because we're playing a good defense, or playing them as defense, but also he's no longer there. Zay Flowers.
Right.
He hurt his knee. And the first report is it's not season ending.
Yeah, that's
never
not
good when it's a Saturday game.
Right,
That's
right.
never good. And so he's listed as day-to-day for now. I'm not touching him even if he is playing, because even though it's a reasonable $6,000.
sure.
But if he's out and playing his first game, there is no precedent because he's never missed a game that wasn't a rest game. He played all 16 last year, rested the 17th, played all 17 this year. So there's not a precedent of sample size. How do they distribute? But again, what I mentioned earlier, I think is Rashad, it's Mark Andrews, or it's Isaiah Likely. And I know Mark Andrews has the floor because he keeps scoring touchdowns in the last 2.5 months. But Rashad Bateman's had the 100-yard upside unlocked this year. And so if he is truly the only receiver that is going to get any kind of targets, him being 5,000, I feel that is a good boom play.
Yeah, that's fair. I would like to get Mark Andrews if that was over. I think I'm
You
Mark
think
Andrews
Mark Andrews
greater.
over Rashad?
Remember how we had this conversation last week and it just didn't matter? They both did well.
Yeah.
So,
If you went down to Mark, you're able to get up to the Rams defense.
yeah, that seems
spitballing.
reasonable. 700.
You could do that. You can do Pat Freiermuth as a bring back to Mark Andrews because he's had decent target share over the last couple of weeks. Or my other idea was instead of going Austin Eckler, you can go a Pittsburgh running back as a bring back, going one of those directions.
Well, see, we're still in this same.
The thing is, even though Freiermuth has kind of unlocked somewhat of a floor lately, both games against Baltimore, I believe he had less than 5 points. So neither game he really showed any kind of sample like, oh, you can even add in that. Mark Andrews, his last game, he did score a touchdown, but only had 37 yards, but they were also ahead a lot very early. Again, I think you have to only make one or two decisions after kind of putting in this core of the line, but that's kind of the idea I had with the Chargers build.
Fair. Let's go.
You pick the quarterback on this one.
Absolutely. Let's get the 57.
Easton Stick.
Yeah, no. Matt Stafford.
Matt Stafford. All right.
I'm in a single stack.
Single stack. Okay.
And then.
Do you want to bring back or
yes,
you want to leave it?
I'm going
All
to put in
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to make you pick the tight end this time.
Okay.
And
Let's put in Will Dissly.
Okay.
Open up some money.
Can I just
Do that. Are you trying to? Yep.
It's either
Reach for the stars. I am completely fine. Again, doing a double with Kyron and Puka just to be raw points.
No,
And
yeah,
you're
yeah.
both getting
I
over
know.
20. But you said you want a single, but it's 1,100 less.
It
Or
is, but I'd rather just go to Nico
Nico.
and get both of them.
Okay.
Like if I was gonna take Saquon out, I'd go to Nico.
Let me ask you this,
Okay.
because you asked me to rank the top 5 receivers. How would you rank the trio of Ladd, Cortland Sutton, and Terry McLaurin? All in good spots. Or good game environments for themselves.
Ladd, Terry, Cortland.
Okay.
I guess. Yeah, I think so.
I think they're all going to be like within a tenth of a point of each other, and maybe one scores and the other two don't.
I think Ladd's one, personally. So,
I don't think it's clear cut, but I
No,
also
no.
side with him being one.
but I'd like to do like something like, well, hello, Nico. Why are you going down there, buddy? Oh, wait, you could do this. You could put all three of them, Puka, Saquon, and Nico. No way. This is fun. Let's go get a $4,800 Quentin Johnston. Oh, I can't do that. Well, actually,
If you went a double tight end or a
I wouldn't
Houston-
do Will Disley here,
Oh yeah, fair.
but I could just not do Will Disley.
Go Higbee as the double.
Could do that. Could also
Isaiah Likely. Let's pretend because I just went with Rashad that say Zay Flowers is out.
Okay,
So I think that unlocks a little bit more floor for Isaiah Likely.
perfect.
So if you wanted to do that, 3,200
4,200 left over. Is
still
that?
doesn't really help much.
Well, no. That was why I was gonna say we could T.J. Hawkinson. We could do. I would rather my wide receiver. Why is Sterling Shepard just so highly? Can you give me a real like? I know that he's gonna be the guy that's next up, but like, I just don't
He's not. He doesn't have the numbers to back up
his value
the value.
because like I want to find a value
And
guy.
Since Jalen McMillan was unlocked, he's really just kind of been phased out, and that's without K. Dodden in those 3 games, and he's still. You have an idea.
Pick your favorite Houston cheap guy. It could be Xavier Hutchinson, who's 3,200, very cheap. 3,500 Deontay
I
Johnson.
want to be crazy.
Hear it. Let's hear it.
Deontay Johnson.
Okay, $3,900 left for tight end. That seems reasonable. Goddard. I already have a Philly player, but I mean, yeah, you could go Tucker. Okay.
If you, and again with this line, I'm just spitballing because you can do like little changes.
right.
You can go down from Saquon to Kyron and make this a double, and then bring up to Mark Andrews, who's probably, if price didn't matter, our favorite tight end. And it's a,
Are we fading Bucky?
yes.
Okay.
I don't want to play him at 65% owned.
That's absolutely fair. I'm just asking.
Mhm.
But yeah, you could do that. $1,300 is $5K. Or how about this, Cameron?
Tell me.
Oh, I can't do that. Never mind. Don't listen to me. I was gonna put 2 Baltimore players in there.
That's fine.
I just can't do it.
I'm not against it. Again, this isn't a typical like, hey, I've got to do a double, I've got to do a bring back. Like, it's the playoffs. All of the totals are basically the same within a touchdown of each other.
Right.
No, none of them are bad weather games. So I could definitely see. We've seen many $1 million winners. The first $1 million winner of the year had Rashid Shaheed, Jawan Johnson
Yeah.
with no stack
It was so crazy.
to win $1 million. Somebody was like, "Hey, I want New Orleans because they're going to drop 40, but that quarterback ain't going to be worth a damn." That was the idea. They won $1 million because of it. So let's not just force out like, "Oh, that doesn't make sense." Maybe it doesn't feel great, but it's going to feel great when both of them score and Lamar only has 20 fantasy points.
Right. No, I completely agree. It's definitely a possibility. Where is Mr. Marvin Mims?
He's 51.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was the first person I X'd out when I saw prices earlier. 'Cause
No.
I'm like, guys, he won people a lot of money in best ball in the finals, but he's
Dang it.
playing 30% of the snaps. He shouldn't be $5,000.
That's so.
He should be 38. But yeah,
I liked last week when all these guys were worth the money.
right.
But I was just trying to like do. I took Saquon in and put in Higbee just to see a double. Um, you can do a lot of things. I think honestly,
A lot of a
I
lot of
like
ways to
the
make it
idea
easy.
of getting these three together. Like I really like that.
Nico, Puka, and Saquon.
Yeah, if you can do that, like that makes me really excited.
Okay.
So that's
Well,
why.
so my thing is,
Or you could go down from Nico, I guess. But
so in your idea of it, remind me, Justin Jefferson. You said would be two out of those
yeah, but
five highs?
I don't like his ownership, so it doesn't really matter.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying.
You know what I mean?
We can try a build just for the audience if you want to, because they are going to be popular. So
And
we
do
can maybe
what?
trick them into the wrong thing. I don't know. But yeah, put in Puka. I'm sorry, JJ instead of Nico. Take out Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
Let's go get a cheap running back
Fair.
and see if that opens up a receiver that we like.
48.
Yeah. Austin Eckler, and then
Yeah, that makes a
back
lot
to
of
where
sense.
we were.
Okay.
And then
5K.
that's enough for Mr. Rashad Bateman or Mark Andrews, depending on who you like. Or if you just wanted to correlate the Steelers and you're like, Najee, inefficient 2-touchdown game.
Sure.
Nobody's going to play that. So
Sure.
it is what it is, you know?
No, I think that's fun. I definitely want to play the Steelers so that I can put 3 studs. 3 studs makes me happy.
Mhm.
So I'm
And
all about
I
it.
I think we're in agreement on the first two for sure, and then basically we're going to be playing the ownership game on the third one.
Yeah.
Because again, JJ raw player price don't matter, and there's a lot of value. Probably going to just force him in every single Minnesota build. I'm sorry, Rams build.
Right.
But with that being said, it's going to be hard to do that this week. And on top of that, if the ownership is so sporadically different when the upside is the exact same for both Mike Evans and AJ Brown. All I'm saying is I'd rather take the discount on ownership.
Something to note, Bucky Irving is currently projected higher by 1.5 points than Nico Collins. So, I mean, if you put him in there, I'm just saying, like, you could put Rashad Bateman up here.
Because that's the high. Before we go, because that's the highest total game, I want to do AJ Daniels double
Okay, let's go quick.
with the bring back of probably, I guess, Bucky, just to see what it forces us to do.
And
Obviously,
Terry. And then Zach?
probably.
Or
I
Austin
was
Eckler?
thinking. It was between those two. It's up to you. What do you want to do?
Let's go Zach.
Okay.
And just see. And then
Alright.
defense.
Just put cheap, and we can afford one. We can afford one.
Okay,
All right, Puka. I'm not playing a line without Puka this week.
I agreed. I love him. 30
Now
seconds.
Saquon, I'm fine having one less, but I'm gonna be over the field to him,
Okay.
so we don't have to play him in.
I just feel like if we're
But we
playing
can.
Bucky, I would just take Bucky out and play like Jalen McMillan.
True,
You know? Because you can
but
do...
I just want to know like what are people doing with Bucky? And so if Jaden Daniels is, I believe he was one of the more popular quarterbacks, right?
I have no idea.
He's the third highest owned quarterback. He's
But
one of
12
three quarterbacks above.
12% though. That's
Well
not...
spread out.
Yeah, but that's not like... I'm like, oh, well, obviously that's where Bucky's ownership's coming from.
Yes,
So it's standalone Bucky.
I guess.
Okay. Well,
I think it's inflated. It'll probably end up being 45 to 50%.
yeah, agreed.
Maybe small field, it's going to get to 60, but yeah. Let's see. Last three guys.
Quinn Johnson.
Quinn Johnston.
He just is
Well,
so cheap.
it organically fits if you went Quentin, Rashad, /
Right,
Andrews,
right.
and then insert Pittsburgh running back. Mathematically, at least.
Well, if you go Rashad, you have to go Najee. But
Do you? Instead of Warren? I'm just asking. I don't
price wise, right? Isn't
know. Warren's 52.
yeah? So he would be cut out, is what I was saying.
I did math correctly. All right. But yeah, so it would have to be Najee. You're correct on it. And again, that's going to be a low own, and the one guy on this entire team that maybe is not over 10%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Terry's over.
That's
Yeah,
right.
every single person's over 10%. And that would be the way to get different is Mr. Najee Harris in an uncomfortable way, but it correlates with the defense. But he's 3% owned. He just had the most opportunities in the game they were trying to win and failed to do.
Pick a different tight end. Pick a cheap tight end. 3,400 Will Disley or something. No, can't do that.
It's what does Isaiah Likely open up at 64? That's a JK. Well, you wouldn't do JK. But
Cooper Kupp, George Pickens. You're a little short on these guys, which I'd rather get up to Lad McConkey or Cortland Sutton if I could. Aaron Jones, I guess.
well, what if this hurts? Say, okay, I'm not playing Quentin in all three lines.
Fair.
If we do three, so take out Quentin, and then take out Eckler for now. Instead of a double with one of those two, let's do a De'Ami Brown, 34.
Fine.
See what we can math.
De'Ami Brown's reasonable. Okay.
Said 34. He played a ton of snaps before he did miss, I believe, due to a concussion.
Tight end.
Oh man.
We had Isaiah Likely in there.
Put in Likely for now. Ooh, that's money.
Running back. Can't go all the way up. 42 is ugly. 41 is uglier. But you could go 6,000 here and then go Cortland Sutton. Or
The problem is that the between 55 and 6K range sucks.
Yeah.
This week to me. So it's basically 5K and below or like way up, and I was trying to see like who the combination would be. I mean, we can end up just going all the way to a Saquon or a JJ and have, well, yeah, that works too. Have a Nico.
running back matters. Kyron in Minnesota.
I'm completely fine with that.
Double. You can't double that.
I'm saying I might be interested.
What about you could always just do that and then put Mr. Sutton in.
Gross.
It is. It's not as fun.
But reasonable. It is reasonable.
Yeah. Can you play like Jalen Warren or Najee and then put in AJ Brown?
That's something I'm fine with. I know you said you didn't love.
Well, I mean, I'm not against it for the price, for the tournament wise.
Price didn't matter. Your other lineup, you don't even count it. Do you like Kyron or AJ Brown more?
Kyron, yeah.
I'm saying I don't mind at all playing just, hey, Kyron's going to get you 30 touches and probably 20 to 25 points. Puka's going to maybe be the best guy to get you 30.
Yeah.
And if you get 50 between two guys, I don't care if I don't play Matthew Stafford, who maybe have no rushing upside, maybe only scores one touchdown. And that's the way that you end up being different, is just no stack, no bring back, but two guys that are just going to get you those that combination of points. Just saying. That's probably the route I would go in that regard.
I took out Bucky. Put Jalen McMillan in. We can go different tight end running backs. What running backs do we have to have?
I'd like to have some exposure to James Cook this week. I'd like to.
6,700.
Yeah.
It's a reasonable price.
Like, I don't understand the only 12% owned right now. They're the biggest or second biggest favorite. What I think should be the biggest favorite on the entire slate. That's enough for Mr.
But I can go up.
Yeah, I would say
7,000 would give you Bucky again. I don't want that. Let's go up to Kyron gives you 35. You get Will Dissly.
Yeah, you do.
I feel like Will Dissly and Quentin Johnston are going in our lines. No matter what, one of them will be in our line.
That's fun.
And that just makes our lines reasonable for price-wise, you know?
Right now, Quentin Johnston's only showing 7% owned after having 13 for 186 and having 8 touchdowns in the other 16 games.
Yeah.
I don't get that exposure. And then Will Dissly at least has he has more ownership at 9, which because of being a tight end, only choosing one, that doesn't matter as much because that's always more spread out than receiver.
Right.
Yeah, 7% doesn't make a lot of sense. So, yeah, I'm probably going to be way overweight to Quentin and be sad. However, the upside is there.
Fair. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us, though. That is 3 quarterbacks. Cam want to do a third, and it's
Sorry,
it's
it's
tough.
Bucky's fault. It was
I
Bucky's
just
fault.
love Matthew
I'm not playing
Stafford.
Bucky.
Yeah,
that's my
agreed.
stand this week.
Thank God. I love fading over. You know me, but no. I appreciate y'all hanging out with us and watching through the video. We had a lot of stuff to talk about, breaking it down. 6 gamer, but a lot of studs, a lot of different ways to go, and there's some guys I'm going to be uncomfortable not playing, just to say the least. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait for the divisional round to kick off.
Yeah, we
Or
appreciate
wild
you
card.
guys tuning in. Please check out our playoff predictions video. Give us your takes on that. What stands out to you on this slate? And then obviously we've been doing Sunday morning live streams. Playoffs going to be different, obviously, because the slate is starting Saturday afternoons. I don't know what the time is, but maybe 12, 1 o'clock. We'll officially let you guys know in a tweet and in Discord and all of our socials when we officially start. But we'll be doing an hour and a half run where we kind of answer some questions. But we're also going to be playing other slates. We'll look into the Saturday only slate, which same prices, but now you don't have to make as many uncomfortable decisions because it's more limited. Sunday only is a 3-gamer. There's showdowns every single day.
Right.
We'll dive into a bunch of different kinds of slates and then some props that stand out because there's not a ton out because practice hasn't started yet this week. We're recording as a Tuesday night. But yeah, we'll kind of talk all those kinds of things. If y'all want to come hang out on Saturday, we will be here and ready to break it all down.
Yeah, we appreciate you hanging out with us, and we'll see you on Saturday.